Welcome to the first edition of YMP TV from Brisbane base. Today we've got Grant Polwarth with us. Grant is a mining engineer with a wide range experience across the coal industry and is currently CEO of Fitzroy Australia Resources. As a young professional, Grant and his team worked to acquire the Carborough Downs mine near Moranbah in 2016 at sort of bottom of the market in conditions not too dissimilar to what we're seeing today. And the process establishing in Fitzroy a met coal producer, which has recently celebrated its 4th anniversary. For those who know, Fitzroy has a reputation in the industry of being innovative and dynamic, and has since successfully reboot Carborough, extend the life, and build a portfolio of projects in central Queensland. We're thrilled to have Grant with us today to tell us a bit more about himself, his career journey, and Fitzroy. So, welcome, Grant.
Thanks, Ian. Good to be here.
To kick things off, Grant, can you tell us a bit about yourself and I guess how you found your way into the mining and coal industry specifically to start off with?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I grew up in the brown coalfields of Victoria, and my grandfather was a driller's foreman for many, many years, doing the original exploration and identification of the resource and the reserve down there that ultimately powered the brown coal power stations down in Victoria. But I didn't ever see myself getting into the mining industry. As a matter of fact, I wanted to be a civil engineer and follow in my father's footsteps. I actually did reasonably well at school, and I applied for a scholarship to the University of New South Wales to their civil engineering program, and I was knocked back. And then I got a call from the School of Mines out of UNSW who offered me a scholarship to do mining engineering. And I'd never really contemplated the industry or the opportunity, but it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life in terms of accidentally joining an industry that I've grown to love everything about it, the people, the culture, the energy, the camaraderie. It's been one of those really wonderful, life-changing events for me, sliding doors moments to get into the industry. And particularly the underground coal industry, I think it's one of the last industries where genuine leadership and motivation make a tangible difference to the safe, productive outcomes of the business. And for that reason, I'm really passionate about it.
Yeah, that's great. It's great to hear. Especially, it's people come from a variety of different backgrounds, and it's sort of not surprising, but surprising in the amount of people that sort of find their way into mining accidentally and end up being the most passionate about it. But I guess you're CEO now. Can you walk us through your career journey to date? I guess starting off with your time in University of New South Wales, studied mining engineering. Keen to hear sort of the broad brush of your career progression, and in particular, would like to understand, any sort of insights along the way you think, for the young engineers, geologists watching, things that they should keep perhaps front of mind when they're starting off their careers.
Yeah, sure. Whilst I was at university, I worked every summer at a variety of different mining operations, underground metalliferous, open cut coal, and underground coal. And rightly or wrongly, I fell in love with underground coal. There was just something about it that I felt a real affinity to and a passion for. And that really shaped my career thereafter. I was a graduate mining engineer at Central Colliery, which is now closed, part of the Capcoal Group. And then I worked my career through a range of technical operations, statutory, and ultimately into management roles. But I think the key for me was that I was always looking to be challenged and looking to continually learn, and made a lot of decisions along the journey that were all about being challenged, continuing to learn, and following my passion, which was underground coal. So I made a number of decisions which maintained that path for me. And I guess probably the most formative or career-shaping decision that I made was very early in my career. I had the opportunity to go and work underground on crew for perhaps 2 years or thereabouts, in development on the longwall face, and also out by in operations. And this was really about having a deep understanding of the business that ultimately you aspire to lead and to run in the industry. And I think that you only truly know your business, and you only truly know the challenges that people deal with on a day-to-day basis when you've actually walked a mile in their shoes.
Yep.
You know, what does it feel like at 4 a.m. On night shift? What are the challenges associated with pulling shields, you know, through a challenging geotech environment, etc. But ultimately, the biggest understanding and appreciation that gave me was for people and culture, and that really did shape my journey in the industry. And I think earning respect and having that, I guess, credibility in what is a tough industry was very important for me, and it was something I was passionate about. So for the young engineers or geologists or whatever profession people are in, it's something that I'd give due consideration to, is actually really fundamentally understanding the business and the people from the ground up. I think the other one was taking a step away. I had made a decision, and it's not for everybody, but I ultimately decided to take a journey away from the majors. And for me, that was about getting exposure to a broader range of experience, being challenged, being thrown in the deep end, that perhaps I may not have gotten if I stayed always with a major operator and perhaps had the, I guess, pigeonholing effect in terms of your career. So broad range of experience, but ultimately for me, it was about knowing the business, and heading underground really delivered that powerfully.
Yeah. And did your in your sort of formative years as a graduate engineer and as a young engineer, you know, in those sort of you know, statutory positions, etc. Did you move around different companies, or you spoke about there your intention around not going the majors route, but you know, how did you sort of look at to select the companies, you know, I guess you wanted to work for, and I guess gain experience from that?
Yeah, I guess you, like anybody, you need to do your diligence on the organisation and make sure it's a cultural fit and represents all that you aspire to be in your life, and then make those decisions where the opportunity is going to avail itself best to you. You're going to be supported. That succession planning is an important characteristic of that organisation, that they want to invest in people and deliver that energy for that to be a platform upon which to grow your business. Now, I've worked in the majors, and there's a myriad of things that they do exceptionally well. And then there's the dynamism that comes from some of the smaller operations. So it's about balancing that experience and tailoring it to your career, and making sure that you're continually learning and you're continuing to evolve, because I think that's the key to it all, is just having that hunger and that passion to get more and more experience, and head down that path of making sure that you never become comfortable, that you know everything, because we certainly don't.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. That's great advice. I think to touch on, I guess, one of your earlier comments around culture. I know from you know, my interactions with Fitzroy in the past, that you know, culture is a real fundamental you know, part of your business and a core focus, and part of your success, I guess. I mean, I'm keen to understand a little bit, you know, around you know, the important aspects of culture and building a good culture. That's quite a broad question, I guess. But I think I'm looking at this at the lens of a young engineer, etc. How did you develop that sort of understanding, I guess? Is it through you know, just your interaction as a leader on the ground? Is it through mentors? You know, did you go get an MBA? Like, yeah, I'm just trying to sort of distill down on how your sort of current mindset evolved.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I guess the first thing I'd say is that we don't have all the answers here at Fitzroy, and we're always challenging ourselves and trying to learn more and to look outside our industry. I think our industry can sometimes become a little bit insular in our focus and the experience base that we apply in our industry. So we've this year at Fitzroy, we've headed down the path of engaging a number of parties who bring to bear a lot of experience from outside of the industry to help challenge the way we look at our business and the way that we can do things better. But for me, in terms of formal training versus on-the-job training, it was a combination of everything that you described, Ian. So surrounding yourself in great people, taking the best that you can from those leaders and those people that you think, you know, really do create the best environment to get the best out of their people. I think that's, you know, fundamentally important, and nothing takes away from on-the-job learning and seeing how things work, as opposed to formal education. I commenced an MBA. I think I got perhaps a quarter of the way through it, had all the best intentions to complete it, and ultimately got just far too busy on this journey with Fitzroy. So for me, personally, it hasn't been so much about formal training. It's been about the experiences that have shaped you and your career, and that was really about, I've had the absolute pleasure of working with some incredible people in this industry over the years, and I've learned a lot off them.
Yeah. Oh, that's good insight. I think, I guess to pivot now, you sort of mentioned how you got busy with Fitzroy. I'll use that as a sort of segue into understanding. It'd be good to understand, the background of how the concept of Fitzroy came about. I guess to start off with, in terms of, you were clearly a mine manager somewhere, and this idea evolved over time and sort of came into fruition. It'd be good to understand, the sort of germination of Fitzroy.
Yeah, sure. So I think it was around perhaps 5 or 6 years ago, we saw a disaggregation perhaps coming to the coal industry, with a number of the majors were exiting the industry for a number of reasons that were important to them. And for us, that meant opportunity. And so we wanted to make sure that we were well positioned to participate in that. There's also this concept of, I guess, counter-cyclical investment, in that the industry at the time was going through a downturn in terms of the macroeconomic environment. But counter-cyclical doesn't just mean the macroeconomic environment, it can also mean the human capital and the drain that we've seen on that in our industry specifically, non-traditional capital looking to be deployed into the space, and much more. So there was an opportunity coming, and we identified that and made sure that we'd like to participate in to the best that we possibly could. So initially, we actually heard that Anglo American were looking to divest of Moranbah North and Grosvenor in a public process that everyone would be aware of. I think it was around 5 or 6 years ago. And again, that was opportunity. I'd had the fortunate experience to be introduced to Anne McIntyre, who's our CFO here at Fitzroy, and Richard Livingston Blevins, who's our COO. And relationships matter. And we paired with AMCI, who I've worked with for about 15 years in the industry at a range of different assets around the industry. And they've got long-standing relationships where there was a deep trust, I guess, in both directions, that this was an opportunity that we wanted to go on and a journey that we wanted to pursue. But it's all about the team. I want to really stress that, and that we had absolute conviction in the industry, ourselves, the opportunity, and the macroeconomic outlook for the commodity of metallurgical coal. So we went on a number of roadshows through New York and London with AMCI, presenting the investment opportunity. And a lot of that was about the opportunity in metallurgical coal and the conviction in the space and the business fundamentals around it, as well as our operating plan, I guess, our investment thesis and financing solutions, and that we would be the management team to go and unlock those opportunities on behalf of the investors. So we ultimately became the management team for a consortium of private equity participants who were seeking to participate in the opportunity to acquire those assets. Now, as we all know, history shows that Anglo American didn't divest of those assets, and they retained those opportunities. So I remember sitting in the lobby of 123 Eagle Street after that process had completed, and I was sitting there with Richard, and we were contemplating, well, where to next? And we had absolute conviction that it was the right time, that the thesis made sense, that we had the passion and the hunger to go about chasing the opportunity. So we decided to back ourselves and pivot. We thought there was an absolute gap in the industry for a metallurgical coal business that was built on people, culture, and energy, and we wanted to see that through. So we knew that Vale were looking to exit from the coal space out of Australia for reasons that were important to them, and so we pivoted quickly and decided to pursue the opportunity by approaching Vale. Speed was absolutely critical for us at that time because the market was starting to move. So we went from due diligence of the Vale coal assets that we acquired that now underpin the Fitzroy Australia business, the cornerstone of which is Carborough Downs, the underground operating longwall asset. We went from diligence to executing a binding term sheet through documentation, signing a sale and purchase agreement, and completion in the space of about 4 months. And then we were the dog that caught the car, and it was time to roll our sleeves up and get to work in building this business and get on with, I guess, trying to realise the vision that we were very passionate about.
Yep. And to sort of, I guess, sort of summarise partially around, you know, the sort of failed Anglo process, but I guess in one way that was a good practice run for you guys in terms of, you know, understanding the investor landscape, having to go through and sort of putting together business plans, etc. I imagine. Did you find that, you know, the relative, you know, youth of yourself, and I guess Richard being your COO, did that affect any sort of your conversations with, you know, Vale or funders, or was it sort of, you know, you had cornerstone backers and you sort of got experience in the industry, and that carried a bit of weight? I think I just think some of the times some of the comments you know, I've heard from young professionals in the past is that, you know, they struggle to get traction because they haven't done it before, I guess. And in this case, this was your first sort of rodeo in terms of creating a company. So it'd be good to see, you know, your experience around that. Yeah,
sure. And again, I'd probably lead this by stressing that it's never about one individual or two individuals. It's about the team and the breadth of experience that you bring to bear, and a track record, and ensuring that not only do you have conviction, but there's actually credibility there is an important thing. And so the team that we had assembled really went a long way to ticking a number of those boxes. But I guess to answer that question more crisply, you know, my late father used to always say to me that you're old enough if you're good enough. And that's sort of been a motto that I've certainly liked to take through my career, in terms of taking on opportunity and making sure that you didn't let things pass you by because you had a misconceived notion that you know, you needed age, or you needed more grey hair, or whatever the case may be. But really, it was about making sure that, as you said, you fundamentally understood what was important in the investor landscape, that you had conviction, you had an operating plan that you knew could work, and that you delivered that in a way that could answer all of the questions. Had a roadmap forward and a plan that then became about execution risk as opposed to the actual investment overlay risk itself.
Yeah, oh, that's good. That's really good. Interesting insight. I think to capture, I guess, one of your comments you made just before around, you know, dog who caught the car, in terms of once you managed to close the deal and now proud owner of a coal mine. What can you give us a bit of colour around sort of, you know, the first that sort of teething period for the first, you know, I mean, even probably up to now, like it's 4 years seems like a while, but it's been a bit of a journey. It'd be good to get to understanding of, you know, some of those key challenges and how you approach them in the early days.
Yeah, I'll probably start answering this, Ian, by taking a step up and say that what was fundamentally important is that the two cornerstone investors in Fitzroy, being AMCI and Riverstone Capital, have a really long track record and understanding of the industry. And that's deployment around the world into a range of different commodities, but specifically in energy. And what was very important there was that we were given the space to run and operate the business with all of the diligence and governance that's expected in this world that we operate in. We were given the space to invest in people and culture, safety, technology, because we were looking to create a sustainable business. So we had a vision, and the vision was to build the next great Australian mining house. And to go about realising that vision, we needed the operating discipline and the platform upon which to launch on that journey. Now, acquisition of Carborough Downs and the surrounding 100,000 hectares of tenement that existed in that package, they were the assets. That made sense. But then it was about understanding, well, how do you go about converting that to realise that vision? So we had a business that was slated for closure in 2017 under the former owners. Now, clearly, we took a different view to it, that it was an asset that fundamentally was very well capitalised, that had a magnificent opportunity. Geology and geography are everything. It was well positioned. It was close to the coast. It was a commodity that we believed in, had wonderful people working for it, and a great base upon which to launch. So for us, it was about creating that sustainable business and then looking to be an industry leader in our safety performance, productivity and cost. So to summarise, I guess the vision was perhaps we saw value where others couldn't in the Carborough Downs asset specifically. And then it was about pivoting around the mine plan. Some of the challenges early, we had to recommence development operations underground because Varley had ceased development before we acquired the assets. So there was no development occurring anywhere in the mine. We had to take an alternate approach to the mine plan to give us longwall continuity. So we mined narrower, what you perhaps describe remnant longwall blocks in the current reserve base, whilst we were developing out to the north to unlock the future of the business, and that came with a number of its own challenges. We recommenced board and pillar operations underground, so 2 board and pillar sections underground to supplement and support the longwall production whilst we were developing the business to the north. We completed a number of smaller M&A transactions which added on to the reserve base, and they were highly capital efficient and drove a great outcome both financially but also for the reserve tail of the business where it made strategic sense. We saw the opportunity to reopen the Broadley open cut mine in 2017 at a time when the market was more buoyant, and it was an opportunistic strike to get in there, diversify our production, bring a different, not only market products, but a different mining method in open cut truck and shovel to complement underground longwall and board and pillar operations and take advantage of the market conditions that availed themselves. So it was a diversity of different things that we embarked upon to underpin the business. And we always make no mistake in our discussions across our business, and that was about making sure that we had a business that was sustainable and that could respond to the market conditions and challenges, and always never lose sight of who we are and what we wanted to create. So for us, people and culture are everything. We wanted to create an environment that was energised, that was disciplined, and that we weren't just hungry for success, but we're actually starving for success. And that flowed through our business, and we believe that's what created I guess the right conditions to try and attract a uniquely talented team. And I know I'm very biased, but I believe that the team that we've got at Fitzroy is absolutely industry leading and passionate about our industry, our community, and specifically our operations.
I guess to sort of extend on that, there's sort of some big milestones across your journey. Is there sort of, if you had to, pick 3, 2 or your 3, most proudest moments, or as a sort of people leader, what's the real your sort of highlights in the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think more broadly speaking, the Fitzroy turnaround story around Carborough Downs is one that I'm immensely proud of, because we've got around 550 full-time equivalent employees who continue to work at a sustainable business, contribute to our broader community in the sense of giving it that sustainable future that perhaps it didn't have previously, and I'm really proud of that. But specifically 2 key items. One would be we had the Ironbark No. 1 project, which was had a former name in a former life, but we renamed it Ironbark No. 1, wanted to give it some energy and passion. We went through the approval process for Ironbark No. 1 from mining lease application to mining lease grant in 367 days, which is, I think, some sort of a record in Queensland. It's an underground longwall project which sits shovel ready in the Wrangle measures, using the same mining methodology, sharing infrastructure with Carborough Downs, which will be developed at some point in the future as the market rights itself. And I'm really proud and excited about that. The other one would be we decided something that's been on our minds for a long time was involving families in our business. We like to pride ourselves that we're a family business and that we're a people business that mines coal. And the best way to embody that was to invite families to our mines. So last year we hosted the first ever Fitzroy Family Day at the mine site in the car park of the mine. We had over 800 family members travel from all over Australia, some as far as New Zealand, to come and visit our operations. We had jumping castles and fairy floss in the car park. We had young children. We all had their sizes pre-arranged in Fitzroy fluoro mining gear, just like mum or dad wears, with their name embroidered. We hosted tours underground through the prep plant, through the workshops. We had equipment isolated and able to be inspected. And for me, being able to see that pride and passion, the smiles on children's faces, wives, husbands, and the pride that people had in projecting and showing off where they work was phenomenal. And that was about being that family business that we always wanted to be, but also strengthening psychological contracts that we have with one another, with the business, with the industry, because we know that when we're more connected, we're safer. We work in a more collegiate way. We break down the barriers and we demonstrate who we are. We wanted the partners, wives, mums and dads to come to the mine and to see who we are, to see how we care about one another in the industry and be proud of the fact that they work with us.
Yeah, that's pretty special. I mean, as someone who's worked in the industry a little bit as well, you know, you don't often get to show you know, your loved ones and friends, you know, what it's all about, and it's always a bit different trying to explain it over the dining room table, as opposed to going, you know, jump in a drift runner.
Really? Yeah.
So that's pretty amazing. I think you know, in terms of you know, summarise our sort of conversation so far in terms of Fitzroy, you know, good technical foundations, you know, culture around the company. You've sort of solidified a good base with different projects. To the extent that you can, it'd be good to sort of, you know, hear what's in store for Fitzroy. I mean, we're in a current sort of glut in the coal market, but you've sort of, you know, you've been through this before and sort of have got yourself, when I say yourself, I mean Fitzroy, positioned. Be just good to get a bit of a feel for what you think's next for Fitzroy.
Yeah, next up, right in front of our nose at the moment is dealing with a lot of the challenges the whole industry is dealing with in terms of the macroeconomic environment and emerging from the challenges of managing through COVID. And we make, I guess, no apologies and no mistake with the fact that safe execution at Carborough Downs and pulling the levers that we control. We're price takers, not price makers in the market. And so that means we've got to control what we can control. And for us, it's pretty simple. There's three levers. We've got to be the safe business every day and live our match winning qualities every way in our business. Secondly, we need to be productive. And thirdly, that needs to be at a good unit cost. Now, when we control what we can control inside the mine gate, we traverse our way down that international seaborne cost curve, and then we become a sustainable business. Now, not one of those levers in isolation does the trick. It's all in concert at all times. And that's something that we've been very strong on in our mantra in the business. So for us, getting through COVID, priority first and foremost was on ensuring that we safeguard the health and safety of our people, our communities, and then the business. We chose speed over elegance in recently restructuring our business in the face of COVID-19. And what I'm most proud of there is that we didn't lose who we are. I guess that DNA of Fitzroy and being that people business that mines coal. So continue to invest heavily in our people development, our culture and leadership programs that are really at the heart of who we are. In the, I guess, next term, what we're looking for is that growth aspiration, that platform of becoming the next great Australian mining house. Now, we're very fortunate that we've got 100,000 hectares of tenement in the Central Bowen Basin, as I said, the epicenter of metallurgical coal in the world. And we sit right in the heart of the Bowen Basin. We've got wonderful access to port, rail. We've got built infrastructure that caters for the development of the Ironbark #1 project. So it's about converting those internal development opportunities and bringing them to fruition in the business. We've got some pretty exciting exploration beyond Carborough Downs as well. We've got a project named 12 Mile, which we renamed, and I'm sure the people on this seminar will appreciate how creative engineers and geologists are. There's a 12-mile contiguous strike of the Moranbah measures that we have on our tenement base. So we named it 12 Mile, and we're pretty excited about that project in due time. Opportunistic strikes to reopen Broadlea once again as an open cut when the market conditions recover. And then finally, looking further afield in the industry at M&A opportunities where they make sense, with bolt-on opportunities to further build the platform There needs to be synergies around product placement, perhaps around geography and utilising our human capital and our infrastructure. But the trajectory is growth, not at the expense of execution at Carborough Downs, and not at all costs. It needs to be sensible growth.
Yep. Yep. Well, just to touch on, I guess, the the M&A theme. I think we're seeing in the industry, increasingly an ESG focus in terms of climate change and the carbon in general. But on one hand, you've got those pressures, but on the other hand, you've fundamentally got an industry that's required for modern society, steel making, etc. Without sort of preaching to the choir, I guess, it'd be good to hear what you think is next to the industry. I think, and I guess with the overlay that some young mining professionals might think, coal, what's next? You're seeing sort of Rio sell out of metallurgical coal in 2018. Anglo sort of flagged it, but didn't follow through. And we've seen the landscape sort of change dramatically. As someone in the industry, it'd be good to get your colour on what do you think's next for the broader industry.
Yeah, sure. And you raised some really good points there in terms of the attractiveness of an industry that we care deeply about and we fundamentally believe in its place, as you say, in providing the building blocks of society in steel manufacture. So there's a long and bright future associated with the commodity that we're in, and a lot of opportunity is going to be there for young professionals who have that passion and hunger and desire to take the industry forward. And one of the key challenges that we have is there's a war on talent and there's a lack of professionals coming into our industry, certainly into the metallurgical coal space. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us to promote and create that image that is real these days, and that is that these are businesses that will afford you a great career, you'll be well supported, and that ESG isn't something that we say because we have to say. ESG and operating under the principles of ESG, it's good business, it's sustainable, it makes sense. We fundamentally believe in making sure that we are continuing to strengthen and challenge our discipline around our ESG platform. At Fitzroy, we do annual reports on sustainability as if we were a public company. Now, why? We do that because we want to be an attractive destination for investment and capital to be deployed. We do that because we know that our employees are demanding more and more transparency and conviction around that. And we do it because it's the right thing to do. So continuing to attract the best and brightest to our industry is going to be a huge challenge. And I'm really, I think I've congratulated you and Andrew on young mining professionals. I think this is a wonderful step forward in that direction in continuing to advocate and support young professionals in this industry, because it is one that we care about and there's a bright future there for us. I guess more broadly, once we get through some of the challenges at the moment with trade tensions, etc., we're expecting that growth and demand to continue to strengthen in the future. And for that, it's about positioning ourselves as I said, that destination of choice for the development and attraction of people.
Yep. Thanks for that, Grant. I think that's along with your earlier commentary. I really just wanted to take the time to say thanks for running us through the Fitzroy story. I think where you close there, I think is really summarises where we are with an industry, and I think and part of the reason why young mining professionals exist in terms of to sort of help foster and give back to that next generation. So glad to have you on and tell the Fitzroy story and sort of give a perspective that perhaps hasn't been seen as much in the coal industry in terms of starting your own company and making a go of it. So thanks very much, Grant. Is there anything else I guess you wanted to talk about while we've still got you?
No, I think it's been a good chat, mate, and I appreciate the time. And to you and to Andrew, if there's ways that Fitzroy can support young mining professionals, then we're more than happy to, because as I said, it's a great industry, and we need to support each other and give back where we can.
Yep, no dramas. Thank you very much. Well, we'll
Thanks.
be in touch, and I'll wrap it up. Thanks.
Cheers, mate.